Hi guys, Craig Yeats here. Last week we met Jack Tonneson. I've known Jack for many years because of my career as a hockey player. As time's gone on and my hockey career came to an end, I decided I was going to jump into triathlon. I've really enjoyed triathlons, and today we are going to meet professional triathletes. Marielle Sawyer. Mariella, thanks so much for joining us on Coffee with Craig. I really want to find out your story of becoming a triathlete. What made you want to get into the sport?
So it's quite a funny story actually. It was a friend who was doing his first half Ironman, and I was absolutely mesmerized by this event and thought he was absolutely crazy for doing the swim, bike and run. And yeah, I guess I just wanted to, have my part in it. So I entered, and the bug bit. And then I kind of, fell into it, started training a bit more, got a coach, and then, I'm quite a competitive human being, so naturally I wanted to get to the age group podium, and then things sort of just progressed, and there we are.
How did you do in your first triathlon that you ever did?
First one was half Ironman East London, which is obviously quite a tough course, and I think
That's
I did...
the second hardest course in the world.
I believe so, yes. I'll believe it, and I did a 6:38.
Okay, that's not bad.
Yeah, it's okay. A long day out compared to now these days, but I loved it. I think I came 5th in my age group.
In your first race?
Yes.
Okay.
I was still 18 to 24 back then, so it was quite a small age group, but I think that's also what sparked the competitiveness, that I was so close to the podium, so I just wanted to get there.
So Mariella, tell us, what is a 70.3 made up of?
So you start with the 1.9 kilometer swim, then straight to the 90 kilometer bike, and then a half marathon, which is 21.1 kilometers of running.
That sounds crazy. What is your best discipline of those three?
The run, definitely.
The run.
Yeah.
So you've always been a runner?
Yes.
Okay.
That's why I make up time.
You make up time on that. Okay, great. So we've heard from Mariella, and her strongest discipline in triathlon is running. For me, I've never been a swimmer, a cyclist or runner. My skill is the transition. See, what did I tell you? Mariella, let's go. Oh my. So Mariella, when did you decide you wanted to become a pro triathlete?
I got my pro card last year, so that was 2019 around March. So basically how it works is you have to email Triathlon South Africa and fill in a couple of forms, etc., to see if you qualify to get your pro license, and then from there onwards you get your pro qualification per se. But I guess it was kind of the next step in the journey, and in order to be the best, you need to race the best. It was a bit of a big jump into the cold water.
Okay.
But I wanted to improve. I wanted to, do the thing, so I just decided to do it.
To just jump in.
Yeah.
Become a pro. Did you realize how tough it was actually going to be becoming a pro?
So you kind of look at the results from different races to see how you would measure up. Obviously you'll never quite know for sure.
Okay.
But I knew that I would stand a fighting chance in some of the races. Obviously not, compared to the best in the world. But I knew that there is potential, to get there. So that's kind of what I based it off of, and then we kind of went from there.
Okay. So it's obviously a big jump up.
Yeah.
What was the biggest jump up that you saw becoming a pro? Was it the training? Was it the amount of hours that you had to put in? Obviously the competition's a lot harder because you're now competing against people throughout the world.
Yeah.
And they're all elite athletes. What did you have to change most in your training and your lifestyle?
So the training itself didn't actually change that much.
Okay.
It was more the racing dynamics.
Okay.
So you usually would start with the masses, whereas now with the pros, it's just a small group of women.
Starting in the beginning.
Yeah. So me not being a swimmer, at my first pro race, I let it throw me off completely because I was so far behind out of the swim, and it just threw me off.
So suppose being a pro now, you racing.
Yeah.
You're not going against what is my best time that I can get as an amateur. I need to beat the other people so I can win prize money.
Yeah.
Okay, so that must be tough.
Yeah, it's a big, shift in mindset because yes, you are going for prize money and you are comparing yourself against the best in the world per se, but at the same time, you also need to remember to look at your own improvement and not just only focus on that, because as long as you are improving, you're getting closer to the goal.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, no, that's awesome. So tell me, Mariella, how many hours a week do you spend training?
So I mean, in a big Ironman block, you will probably have around 2 to 3 weeks of 23 hours, and then it'll taper back down. During the week, it's generally not as big, but it's the weekends that are so long where you do the volume. And yeah, what a lot of people also forget, it's not just the training itself, that's not where it ends, it's the recovery.
Okay.
Because that's where you really make the gains, if you want to put it that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Mariella, you spend a lot of time training. You also have family and friends that you need to spend time with, and you need to be able to make money. You're a dietitian and you help people with their nutrition. And I think nutrition is so important. It's almost like a fifth element to winning a triathlon and becoming a professional. So let's go and have a snack and find out more about what you need to eat to make sure you get the performance you need out of being a triathlete. So we finished our workout. We're now here at Cafe Neuro enjoying an awesome smoothie, getting in all of my greens for the day. And we're going to hear what the right nutrition is as a triathlete. Mariella, you deal with a lot of clients and you help them with their nutritional needs. What is important to get in every single day with a busy person like yourself training for Ironman?
Sure, it's quite a broad question. So I think the one thing that a lot of people struggle with is getting the basics right. So you want to look at your meal composition per se. So healthy carbs, good source of fats, good protein, and then apply that to all of your meals and snacks throughout the day. And then you obviously also need to tailor it with regards to what training you're doing, and also look at things like what type of foods are you going for. So we're obviously looking for unrefined, wholesome foods, which are a lot richer in nutrition compared to your processed alternatives per se. And something like hydration gets overlooked a lot as well, so that's a big part of it too. Yeah.
Okay. So people say you must drink 8 glasses of water a day. Do you have any kind of recommendations of how much water you should be drinking?
So 8 glasses, it's a good baseline to go with. The thing with athletes or people who are training a lot, sweating a lot, is that often isn't enough.
Okay.
And the problem is also water alone does not suffice. So we actually need the electrolytes, replace the salts that we're losing in the sweat.
So sports drinks?
Not sports drinks necessarily, but just the electrolyte, like effervescence or like your rehydrate or something like that, because that contains all the electrolytes that you lose when you sweat and exercise. Yeah.
Okay, so you're losing a lot of electrolytes when you are training and you're exercising and you're sweating. There's a lot of fads that have come along. There's the caveman diet, the paleo diet. Now a lot of endurance athletes are going plant-based. What are your thoughts on this?
So I think the big thing with these fad diets is ask yourself, why do you want to do it? Because often the perception is that it will improve performance, which is not always true. And the second thing is also know what you're doing, because the thing is, as soon as you start cutting out a whole food group, you are losing out on a lot of nutrition.
Okay.
So for example, with plant-based, you're now cutting out dairy, cutting out meats. So that's something like your iron, calcium, and vitamin B. So if you don't know what you're losing out on, then that often can result in deficiencies, which can negatively affect performance.
Okay.
So just educate yourself, know what you're doing, and then there's no reason that plant-based can't work for you. But the important thing is to make sure that you know what you're doing.
Okay, great. And what is your go-to meal after training?
Sure. That's a tricky one.
Is it different all the time?
It is different all the time. And also, I find that in summer when it's really hot, I usually crave something like a smoothie, something that's cold and easy to get
like we're having now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just because sometimes it's hard to eat after a big session, but I do always enjoy chocolate milk.
Okay,
that's
chocolate milk. Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of people have said that's a great recovery drink. Super M, we used to have Steri Stumpies that you used to drink in the tuck shop at school. But do you also agree with taking some kind of protein, some kind of recovery drink after your heavy exercise sessions?
So I definitely think it's important to, replace your glycogen stores that you've replenished, or to replenish the glycogen stores after your training. So a good thing to go with is to have a little snack straight after, and that can be something like your chocolate milk, Steri Stumpy. Doesn't have to be fancy. Milk is really underrated. It's been getting a bit of a bad rep recently, which is a bit, shame, because it's a really great source of nutrition. So yeah, your chocolate milk's great, or something like a smoothie is really nice, peanut butter sandwich. Just have a small snack straight after your session to make.
Is there a certain amount of time where you have to eat after your training session?
It depends on the session. If it was an easy shorter session, then it's not as critical. But high intensity work or anything that's more than 2 hours, then you want to try eat within 45 minutes to half an hour afterwards. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. And now tell me, training for Ironman, you obviously have to do a lot of cycling and running early in the morning. Is it important to wake up and eat before the session, or do you just wake up and go and start training?
So this also varies between men and women.
Okay.
So as women, we need carbohydrates. So for women, I generally do not recommend faster training.
Okay.
There's a whole it's a whole other topic to chat about. But generally with long sessions, especially if there's intervals involved, so with Ironman training you often have race pace intervals, then I'd recommend have a good solid breakfast before, because you want to start being topped up, and that will make sure that you perform a lot better, and you will feel a lot better too while you're training.
Okay, that's cool. And do you have any recommendations of what you should eat the day of a race?
So the day of the race, that really varies from individual to individual, because what works for you might not work for me. Some people love their baby potatoes on the bike. Some people like their gels. Some people like the jelly babies, bananas. It can be anything, and there's not one thing that works for all. So generally what I say to my clients is, what do you enjoy eating? What does work for you? And then we work out your requirements based on that.
Okay, great. Marielle, is there a difference between myself being a guy and yourself being a female, and the type of nutrition you have to take?
Yeah, there definitely is. So the big thing is often when it comes to fat oxidation, that's a massive point of discussion when it comes to endurance sport. And the thing is that us as women, we obviously have a menstrual cycle, which means lots of hormones. And these hormones affect which fuel we utilize. So that's also why I say to my female clients, try to stay away from faster training, because your body doesn't need that sort of stimulus to increase fat oxidation, because we have that hormone cycle, which means that in a higher hormone phase, our body automatically oxidizes more fat. So we need to learn to work with that in sync with regards to our nutrition. Whereas with men, there's obviously not these fluctuations in hormones as there are with women. Yeah.
So does that mean if I'm a guy, can I do intermittent fasting and train for Ironman?
You definitely can. Again, I would say why do you want to do it? That's the big factor. And then also making sure that you do it right. So where a lot of people also go wrong is that they do faster training sessions, but then they will fast and do an interval training session. And the reality is that we have many different energy systems that we utilize during different intensities of training. So if you are doing an interval session and you are fasted, your body requires carbohydrates because of the energy system. So you're shooting yourself in the foot. So the important thing when fasting or doing faster training is to keep those sessions at a very low intensity, if that makes sense.
Okay. And you obviously have to have a lot of supportive people around you, supportive husband, supportive family. So when they're on holiday and they want to go sightseeing, they're okay with you staying in the room and cycling?
Yes, so I'm very blessed in that regard. So my family is very supportive, and my husband. And I also try to tweak things a bit. So I'll get up a bit earlier to get the training out the way so that I can join them on the vacation activities. Yeah.
Okay, nice. That's great. So there we have it. Another interview, Coffee with Craig, sometimes a smoothie, with Mariella, professional triathlete here in South Africa. We got to see a little bit about her training, a bit about her diet, and really got to know the person behind all those fast running times. Stay tuned for the next episode of Coffee with Craig.